Welcome to another episode of On Fire here on Daily Mirror. I'm Iswaran Ratnam. While the focus is on the economy these days and the efforts being taken by President Ravi Karunanayake and the government to address the economic crisis, there are other side issues that are also coming up in the spotlight: the UNP, the SLPP, political issues, and so on and so forth. With me today is former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for giving the opportunity.
So, of course, we have you here on board to discuss the economy being your core area, to discuss the economy and also to discuss a few issues related to the UNP as well. So let's maybe start with the party issue. I mean, where is the UNP now? What is the future of the United National Party?
Well, I would have liked to answer that the last, but as you are pressing me, I would basically give it a start by saying, the oldest political party, it certainly has gone through turbulent times, and it's time to navigate it into a formidable party, because I think it is a party that has been misread. A lot of talent, a lot of futuristic politicians that are there. I think it's a time to harness all of them and put the country back into proper order. And I think UNP has a pivotal role to play. And how we handle it, how we market it, and how we win the hearts and the minds of the people would be the most important aspect. Just to say a party doesn't mean anything. You've got to do is to walk that talk and prove it, that we have been a nation-building party, and we need to get back to that point.
So you think the UNP can make a comeback, a strong comeback at that?
Most certainly. Unfortunately, it has been misread owing to vicious, cynical, diabolical, self-seeking publicity that has been given. It has brought a party that brought independence to the country, and I would say brought the party to rack to ruin.
Now, there are these concerns, Mr. Karunanayake, that the president working with the SLPP could further destroy the UNP's future. Do you see that happening?
I don't think so. I think we have got a president that is one of the most able and knowledgeable people. Right? It may sometimes lack practical this thing, but he's certainly very knowledgeable and the only one who can take us out of this particular problem that we are in. So when you have a person of that nature, decolorize it. Please ensure that we bring the country into its proper perspective and take the country forward from there is what I think. Now, the question that you asked, is it a liability or an asset? I would say it certainly has its drawbacks. But the aspect that it should do is decolorize that, ensure that that's a product that can take us from this country that has been declared bankruptcy for, I don't know for what reason, to a prosperity that can be looked at in the next year, that is the 75 years of economic independence, and also 100 years that will come. So within that short period, how we are going to focus is the question.
But why should the public have faith in someone like Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was rejected at past elections or the recent elections?
Well, that's a matter that I would say leave it to the people. They rejected for reasons unknown, but we have got to accept it. Now it is a delivery. So people who had confidence got it, and they ran the country which was going well to what it is. Now we are coming back to the position of what it is. I mean, UMP is looked at always like a, I would say like a janitorial service, where we basically have to clean up the mess that others do and ensure that we get back moving. And as soon as we
that's
clean
what he's
it,
doing now. He's cleaning
as soon as we clean it up, it's ready for grabs again. So I think it's my intention here is to speak of what we can do rather than be a prophet of gloom, and then ensure that use that talent. I mean, let's decolorize it for once. We have got independence from the foreigners. What have we got? 74 years of independence or freedom. Have we got economic freedom? How and what is the question? My belief is people think cynically on politicians, yes, and it is maybe accepted, but I would put it 90% on these bureaucrats who basically massage the egos of weak-minded politicians and ensure that this country has paid the price for that one. And this started slipping from the 72s when, the change of administration service moved away from public service to palace servants, public servants to palace servants.
Where did this economic crisis start, in your opinion? I mean, some say that Gotabaya Rajapaksa is the one to blame. Some say it goes way back to even 2015, to even prior to that as well.
I would say get back to from independence itself. There's no point blaming particular lot. Everybody has to blame. The rapidity in accepting that would be the way that you got to accept it. I would say the latter lot has to pay more, but it is for the lack of sagacity in order to ensure that they were unable to provide solutions. You know, we have politicians that don't make decisions. You know, lackadaisical, basically postponing decisions.
So are politicians capable of taking decisions? Because that is something that people are asking as well. Some of these politicians, not all, but some.
I could basically answer that as being 26 years in parliament. I would say there are politicians that are elected by the people. That's a democratic right. But the ability of them is highly questionable. You know, just because you're a politician doesn't mean that you can basically run that country. You have basically a will of the people, but that has to be translated into getting that delivery. Now, this is where I fault the bureaucrat, because I think that is the most dangerous element that is there. Because we have some superb people, but unfortunately, they are not led in the proper manner. And I guess there has to be some decision making. Either the politician held responsible or the bureaucrat, other this country will go rack to ruin.
You know, there was this concerns again that, you know, that we have been taking too much of debt, or we've fallen into too much of debt by taking loans from a number of countries, from China, from India, from Japan maybe as well, and that has eventually led to a situation where, you know, we've gone bankrupt.
Yeah,
as former finance minister, do you think that, you know, that is a fair...
It's a fair statement. What we have got done is that we have taken loans which don't have debt sustainability. Now, if you have a loan that you take and you're unable to have its economic return on debt servicing, that's the problem. You know, if you take a loan that is, say, 15%, and you have a revenue of 35%, well and good. But if you have a loan that is taken of 10% and you have a return of 1%, I mean, you know before you're too long that you're going to go into disaster. That has been the problem. You know, there's no, that's why I say, all ministries, the chief accounting officer is the secretaries. But at the end of the day, the problems come to politicians. I must say, there are some disastrous politicians. Unfortunately, in this cynical political world, you know, they are made to pay the price for sometimes the doers and the meritocracy don't get that deserved place.
So in sense,
and I'm a victim of that.
So the officials are taking the wrong decisions, and
no,
as a result...
as I said, there are fantastic. Now, if I may take the example of my Secretary of Finance when he was there. You know, he basically is par excellence, but he also needs to be led. So then, with that combination, you know, we were house on fire. Then likewise, the power and energy, we had secretary, knowledgeable. If you guide it the correct way, yes. Now, the same situation, there have been other ministers led. Why have that development, that success not been the case? So, I gave 2 examples. And 3, when I was trained, I gave examples from my own, because I find there are a lot of politicians are absolutely, they are caught in disaster. They show the negative aspect. So people get up in the morning by thinking, what are these jokers doing? You know, why? That is why there's scornfulness. I know I use the Sinhala word kuhakakama, because I actually don't have found a direct translation for that in English. But that kuhaka or cynicalness or diabolicalness is basically the problem in our country. And I find 74 years of economic freedom, political freedom has not led us to economic freedom. And that's where we have got to find the answer. Not that it can't be done, whether it wants to be done.
I mean, we're talking about officials, also something else is also about the independence of the central bank. I mean, as finance minister, or when you were finance minister, did you feel that, or even now, do you feel that there is too much outside interference in the central bank, or do we need that political interference anyway?
I would basically give you a very straight answer. I think they are part of the problem and not the solution. But while saying that, I would take that to a different level and answer in a different forum. But I would basically say with hands, if you take it, so rapid expansion took place in 1988-89. Was there any problem that was there? Only subsequently, you know, 1 or 2, 3 people tried to become, you know, pundits in the system, and they have paid the price today. Now, if I may look at today, we are saying we are gone bankrupt. Who gave that authority to have so? Here you have the section 148 in the Constitution, which leads the Parliament as the main body of public finance. If that country has to go bankrupt, isn't it the Parliament that has been elected, the people who elected the Parliament that has got to give the answer? Now, many frivolous charges have been put against many, including many that are there. Now, they basically have got to answer questions when this particular heinous crime has been committed and nothing is going on, as if there is, business as usual. How did that particular one take place? Did the monetary board approve it? Did it come to the finance minister? Did it come to cabinet? Did it come to parliament? If not, then what is section 148 in the parliament for? So I just stop it at that because I don't want to take this to a personal battle, but I want the people to think this holier, there are saints that are holier than thou type of approach doesn't answer the question. Being armchair critics doesn't solve the problem. We are in a bankrupt city. Why is it? This fashionable concept of soft landing and all those are, good for showbiz type of a statement. We have run it as well. We inherited the same type of economy in 2015, but our answers were completely different. Didn't people enjoy 5 years of economic freedom? Unfortunately, this country goes through some turbulent times, and there was a bad period as well. But it never had this economic impact that is there. We basically had a completely sea change in 1977. And if not for Mr. Jaya Jayawardena, this country would be basically going towards the far left and ensure that we go into anarchy. But it modernized itself. But in the meanwhile, we never embraced either go forward. We were basically stuck in the middle, not knowing whether to put the reverse gear or to accelerate it in high speed.
Could some of these issues have been avoided if we had gone earlier to the IMF?
I must say, with all respect, IMF endorsement is a must. Endorsement. But I wouldn't tell them to be coming and telling us how we are going to be dancing. I handled the 16th tranche that was there, and I'm sure the same president was the Prime Minister then. He gave the fullest cooperation that was there. But we had officials that were keeping people's prosperity at heart, not to warm a chair and to be basically saying, this is the way to go for. You have got to show how to protect the people. There is no point going to contraction, having high interest rates, saying that this is anti-inflationary and taking the country to doldrums. Today, this approach will not only, I think in May or June, right, we went into delinquency without parliamentary approval. Now, with that particular thing, what we are basically heading towards is that the small and the medium is going to disaster. How can an innocent guy who basically borrows from the bank at 30-31%, pay back? You're 1/3 working with the bank. You have staff that has got to be looked after. What is the entrepreneurial skills that you get rewarded for? Now, this is why I thought it was bounden duty for me to come forward. Because many have been asking. Of course, I have gone through some unfortunate times that are there for no sins created by me. I would answer that at a different time, but I thought it is bounden duty of me to come forward and say as to whether this can be rectified or not. Yes, it can. Whether it is a question that is there. But I take hats off to Ranil Wickremesinghe. He basically has navigated this through turbulent times in a very sagacious manner and also in a bold and daring manner.
But isn't he basically doing what the IMF wants done? I mean, you were saying that we should.
Well, I don't know. I'm not privy to what they have been.
But the tax,
knowing,
do you agree with the tax?
I would basically simply say that is led by, I think he is the finance minister, president maybe, but the officials are running it. And I think fiscal and monetary being in one or two people's hands is detrimental and it's deadly.
So
and I find that these chambers in this country, I would say, many of my good friends, but they are absolutely spineless, right? They should not be basically saying how good a man when you're in power. You've got to fight for that industry. This is how India, this is how Pakistan, this is how Bangladesh, countries that are of the same league in our area have been basically bringing economies to its place. And I basically would love to see them standing up and saying, enough is enough. They say enough is enough until they get their position. That's not the way that industries should be.
So you feel these chambers are misleading the public as well?
Yeah, because when I was finance minister, they gave the most brilliant example. I wouldn't say, We are just a temporary lease of life that is being given to run a thing. We get the ideas, see how good it is, make the decision. Today, procrastination is the art of the public service. The politicians love to hide behind that and take decisions. We have got to take that decision. That's the clarion call that is required.
Well, I mean, overall, how do you see the President's economic policies and even in general the steps that he's taken?
As being a person who has been in the party and knowing him, I know exactly what he wants, and I don't think there's anybody collectively put together has his knowledge. But practicalness, I may have a different opinion. But at this particular moment, you need people of overall overview of knowledge, but you need execution. You need to walk the talk, and you need to have somebody who's saying enough is enough. And I think, as I used to ask the question, IMF endorsement is a must. And this is what we did in 2015, 2016. But likewise, you must not tell them how we have got to be dancing.
Yeah.
You know, they've got to, if they tell, okay, give us 200 billion a year, we must tell, okay, this is the way that we'll get it. You know, why get, now they are basically saying this, 80-20 direct taxation to consumption. These are fashionable statements. You're good to get on a platform and be telling political statements. But end of the day, can you walk the talk? Today, taxes on profit is useless. Today, rupee here is useless. So you take statement, they'll have all the businesses going into Dubai or Singapore or Maldives, and they're bringing what is required into this country, and the little we can get also won't be got. And I'm speaking on this because I have many business. I'm a businessman in politics, professional businessman in politics, and I have paid the price for, because I'm basically voicing their concern. Knowing the problem that they have, if I don't open out, I should basically be faulted for. That's what I thought I would be doing with you.
How do you see I mean, you said that you're a businessman as well. I mean, for investors to come in, when we speak to, you know, foreign diplomats, they say that there are some concerns for investors here, that there's too much of red tape. The ease of doing business also needs to be looked into. I mean, what sort of steps do you think that Ranil Wickremesinghe and his government need to be taking?
Well, if you look at the world economy, is 100 trillion today. If you look at the American economy, which is roughly about $23,000 billion. You have the Chinese economy, which is about $17,000 billion. You have the Indian economy, which is just before us, which is $3,500 billion that is there. European Union is roughly about $12,500 billion. All this put together, 100 trillion economy. Now, in this process, as for us, Sri Lanka is placed in one of the best places in the world, geographically well located. Are we leveraging that? No. We are playing politics. We must realize that commercial diplomacy is a must. And if we are going to position ourselves, the best way is to ensure that we make friends of the entire world rather than enemies of the few. You know, at this particular moment, we don't need to hide ourselves. Our regional leaders are Chinese, the Indians that are there. They are our closest friends, and they have always stood with us. We must win their confidence and feel that we are not a national threat to their security. They are paranoid on that. Likewise, China is a country on the move. Asia, deep pockets, business oriented. So we must take the political leadership and the neighborliness approach that is there, take these contradictions away, and then ensure we also address the Chinese economic strength. We want them. So this is the way forward. At the moment, we do contradictory things which upset both, and we are friends with none. We need Japan, who has been there right along. You know, Jayajavardhana protected Japan in 1952 with a statement that was there. You know, hatred Caesar, not with hatred, but with love.
Yeah.
You know, where is the love that is coming for? They can do much more. And that's what I think I can see President now doing it. We are trying to leverage that particular one. Then the Americans are there with, and the European Union is there. The system is in place. You know, everybody today, everything is, the buzzword is corruption. Anything, if a businessman gets it, the other guys go to court saying corrupt. So everybody talking corrupt without knowing what the corruption is. Now you have today, 6 months ago, you had basically, I would say, queues all over. Gas was not there, petrol, diesel, kerosene oil, none of them were there. You couldn't get anything. But now you have restored some order. Now, how does that basically get to place? People forget very quickly. So we have got to remember those and give answers to them.
Why? Isn't that an artificial answer, where people have got used to this new normal of getting fuel under a quota system? So that might be a long-term process as well.
Well, I'm not in government,
yeah,
and I see only from outside. But I see people are basically cut the waste. You know, some places they are extravagant living. You know, the same one place has 10 cars when you can do with 2.
Yeah.
Some people don't have anything. I mean, these are odd world. You have, you know, one society that is walking hundreds of miles to get a 1 square meal, and you have another society that walking hundreds of kilometers to digest what they eat. You know, that's the two ends of the spectrum. So on that score, I would say artificial living, if you say, or artificial borrowed time, is the way that the media and all of have basically marketed this. Let's cut the crap, get down to the basics. How are we going to do this type of thing? Today we are walking towards a heartless society, you know, where you don't understand your mother and the father and the children and things like that. So how are we going to get out of this over-mechanization that has taken place? This is where I think the best opportunity. We have hit rock bottom for, I would say, 90% by the public servants. And I endorse, and I can basically take that with corroborative proof. Ably led by incompetent, maybe as they say, some fraudulent politicians, but that's a couple of percentage of that. So you target, you know, the people, target the people who have created the problem rather than the doers and the meritocracy that can take the country forward. Look at how change has taken place in India. You know, what China was to Hong Kong is what Sri Lanka should have been to India. But today, India is doubled up and they are a country on the move. So as I said, firstly, if we eradicate this suspicion between India and China, get Japan in, then you have the Americans, the European Union, they want to see system. Then the country is there. Then we become a leveraging point. The others would love to come.
But can't we come up with policies where we depend less on, be it India, China, the EU? Now GSP Plus is something that's very important for us. Now we're going to the IMF. I mean, shouldn't our economic policies be changed to the extent where we are more dependent on our exports and less on getting funding and stuff like that?
The day the politicians sell sunshine stories, they try to sell stories that are what is like to be heard rather than what is good to go. You know, the classic example would be Lee Kuan Yew. In 1952, he takes the country over. He sees the problems that are around, and he says, I would love to be like Sri Lanka and makes policy. 10 years later, he comes to the same place and says, my gosh, I would love to do something, but not like Sri Lanka because see the problem there. That's the leadership qualities that are there. You basically have to ensure, and I would give a quote to that particular one, which shows, you know, they call, as for effective leadership, in not making speeches or being liked. Leadership is defined by results and not attributes. You know, that is where leadership is not just selling fairy tales. Today, I would say all the opposition is doing just that. They would love to see what they can basically try to sell rather than deliver. If they are given, this is like when you are carrying a small child and that child is crying to put on the ground. When the fellow is crying when he's being carried, and when he put on the ground, the fellow who wants to run can't even crawl. That's the type of opposition we have, with also a non-performing government that was there. So now it's a transitional position, a transitional period, and let's see how we can basically...
But how can this transition period go forward? I mean, the president has been calling on the opposition to join forces with him. They are opposing.
But then the opposition also has their point. I mean, I don't need to be just saying that, you know, the president did not right. There are all sides that. That's why I say, I find decolorizing is the best. You know, these opportunities, everybody has made mistakes. Nobody can show that, you know, one is holier than thou. On that basis, put everything on the table and say, here it is the way that we are going to extricate ourselves. We are bankrupt. How are we in 5 years going to do this? If you can't, then there's a problem. So then the democratic system doesn't work. But we can. Why are we not? Take that bold, daring, effective leadership and take that. Now to this particular one, you will have always laggards. Some people who never can come to power will basically sell from the womb to the tomb. Others that have it are worried. But that's why he is the president that has the best, because he has everything to gain, nothing to lose. That's where I think we must rally around, get all the things, and I call this is the bare minimum approach and go forward.
But shouldn't there be accountability as well? I mean, now there's talk of, or the term being used, economic crimes, that, that has now gone to the Human Rights Council as well. And they are calling for accountability there. Shouldn't the president, while addressing, some say that, the focus should be on addressing the economic crisis, forget the side issues, but shouldn't he be also looking at those issues as well?
Absolutely. No discounting that at all. But there's a lot of, even Iswaran, you all as the media also are partly to blame, more than partly to blame. You all create a fire and then don't have any solution to that, and the house is on fire.
But
so
the
officials,
officials should be giving us the solutions. We would be reporting on the issues, and we want the officials to come up with the solutions.
That's exactly what you said. I said the same. 90% of bureaucratic problem. That's where you are. But do you back the bureaucrats? No, you mollycoddle them. Do you think that your cell comes in, then it is sensational, and now see what happens in the parliament? Officials that can work also won't work, because you have 3-4 guys that basically talk to the media, and they bring that and they think 3-4 days. But look at, you have investments coming to the country, and no investor will come in to the love of a country. They will come with economic this thing, with passionate trying to develop the country. But you have an investor who came, and basically, with hands-on experience I know, they took almost 25-30 floors and told, here we would like a tax holiday. Any case, there was no tax, taxes on that industry. And Parliament questions as to why you give such and such a big tax holiday. So a lack of ignorance or perfidiousness leads to that. And those guys think, what is Sri Lanka all about? India is so big that they have 26 states. They can go to any one of them instead of come to Sri Lanka. But we basically have to beg and borrow with them to say, come to Sri Lanka. Because once they come to Sri Lanka, they will basically there for life. You look at the Indian Sri Lankan society, they basically love to be in Sri Lanka. But getting them here, keeping them together is the question. That's why I say commercial diplomacy, and I made it very clear. We should not do anything which offends or upsets the national interest of India. Get them in. You ask the question whether we can do without. We can't. We are small. We don't have the guts to do so. So let's basically hold the hands with them, rather than say, no, we can stand on our own feet and fall on our clutches, So then we get to China with economic power, Japan with their, US and European Union will be there looking at this fun taking place when the system enters.
I mean, I remember, I'm not sure whether this was when you were in office, that James Packer...
Sorry, I'll just give one more it's one of the question is Elon Musk.
Yes.
He buys basically Twitter for $44 billion. Our total Sri Lankan economy is only $75-80 billion. What is this? Is this the world? Couple of people that are there that basically is the size of a company, international company, which is on what is on. So here it is that we have got to place ourselves in a manner that is much more relevant and what is useful for the country.
So do you think we are approaching the right people? I mean, you mentioned Elon Musk. I mean, I know James Packer also at one time had tried to come and invest here as well. Are we approaching the right people, or like you said, are we just placing barricades that's discouraging them from coming?
We are placing barricades. We are not commercialized at all. We are an ideal place, good for talking, no action. Like NATO, no action, talk only.
For someone who works with very closely with Ranil Wickremesinghe, how do you see? I mean, putting the economy aside, I mean, there are other issues that are coming up as well, women's issues, child issues. Is he addressing those issues as well, or is he, doing very little in those areas?
Well, I think the women's area is a very important one. It's no more a boys' club in the world. So we have got to address and give that respect and move forward. It is an absolute must. And I mean, likewise, child labor has become another very focal point. Commercialization of the world has crashed, and today the innocent children are getting caught up in the commercial trap. We need to basically bring in that particular one and bring in protective elements that are there. That's a very important one that is there. Then the developed countries, the G20s. I was particularly happy being in the international arena, that the G20 has at least had a heart to be talking of what the rest of the world would be. You know, coming out and saying, don't let the rest of the world get entrapped into this, was for the first time, because they, in a 100 trillion economy, you had, during the corona, the worst heinous crime that was created. You had roughly $17 trillion that were shared among the rich countries at zero cost. And the rest of the world enjoyed 500 billion at between 5 to 10% interest rate. So where is this fair play in the world? You know, we are talking of free trade, we are talking of equal opportunities, but when it comes to the rich and the, you know, the elite club, you know, they share it among themselves and they see the enslavement taking place in the rest of the world. So Bali, the G20, at least touched upon, even in lip service, rhetoric, they managed to get that particular one done. And the climatic change, you know, the climatic change is something which was COP26 that was there in Egypt for something relevant again. So I think this year has been focusing on issues that the world can't hold any longer. As it said, that we don't inherit earth from the ancestors, we borrow it from our children. So on that basis, you know, we must have a complete sea change and ensure that the climatic controls are, these are things, you know, where the developed countries basically took the country or world into this type of climatic control disaster, and now they are giving rectification at the expense of the developing countries. You know, that's where it is. Sri Lanka, it has become even worse. The government servants are basically the decision makers who basically got to do this. Governments come and go, but the officials remain there for 40 years. You know, they come in at 22, they go on at 60, and as for them, they are laggards. That has been the problem.
Could we have foreseen some of these issues, and maybe like now, for example, climate change? Now there's talk of a green economy or blue economy. You know, way back, could we have taken decisions where we did not depend on coal power, where we did not depend on various forms of energy which could harm the environment, and maybe taken steps to even prevent the sort of, you know, the crisis that we are facing right now?
It's easier said than done. In hindsight, you can say everything, how good and bad it is.
Yeah.
But this is all the entire G20s have done exactly what you said we should not be doing. You know, their approach is do what I say, but don't do what I do. No, so now when they have passed it, they have come to their stature of, you know, gone to the developed status, they forget the people who, how they came to that point and block the existing countries that go forward. So that is where all this, you know, unfair world that is there. But no, that's a reality that we've got to live with.
Yeah.
So I suggest that we have got to come with completely a new approach to this. And that's where you've got to be daring, bold and audacious. You know, that's the leadership skills that you've got to basically have. So I get back to again, you know, this is a country that gave, you know, rice from the moon, bread at 72 cents, 350, you know, we basically said we'll basically give everything from the womb to the tomb, but where we are going to bankruptcy. Then what has been the problem? Have we addressed the issue that came in with the Hartals in 52, the insurrection 72, the 1983 riots, the 89 insurrections, then you basically had the civil disturbances that finished and success came in 29, but did we learn? Yeah. Then we came into a 2022, we had this civil unrest again. We never learned.
Yeah.
That has been the problem. So we need to ensure that we learn from this mistake and go forward. Then the next one is the biggest problem that is there for the government is the, I would say, high taxes, the fiscal deficit that is high, inconsistent policies, then the high exchange rates, etc. Now, where is the answer to this? You look at the place where the cradle of how the country should be moved for the universities. You know, today we have people that are 10, 11 years in university when these should be out in 4 to 5 years. Now, we spend almost $2.5 billion of our children going overseas. Why can't we have the university here? Because one lot don't allow those universities to be brought in here. But they basically strike.
As in private universities.
As for private universities. Now, what's wrong? We spend $2.5 billion for our students to go out of the country. We have roughly 40,000 university students. But we have the capacity to take it much greater. Now, if as a start, if all the universities, 15% of that can be told to foreign students to come in here, we can give a much better competitive environment to the university students that can give better service than it all. Now, here, every week you have them marching and having protests that are there. Do you find any one of these people going to foreign universities able to do one protest that is there, a whole placard? Because everything is free education. You know, they have free education. After 4 years, they get their doctorate or they get their bachelor's of science and then they leave overseas. Now, those people have got free education from grade 1 itself. Now, there must be, I would say, at least a system where they get bonded for 15 years or they pay commercial and go. You can't deprive a person, but they must be given a right. Okay, you got free education, you put up 15 years in, or you pay for the person so that the next lot can get that one. Otherwise, we only become a nursery for people to learn and then they depart.
Yeah.
So, these are the areas that you basically got to change. Now, when I was finance minister, I can remember we basically stopped duty-free imports for parliamentarians, government servants, doctors. What happened? Doctors, government servants went on strike. Today, do they even get a push bike? Because we saw what was happening, but they were resisted. You know, you had a president, Maithripala Sirisena, who did everything possible to basically stall the process. You know, whether it was trying to give tabs to the students, whether it was trying to take wireless Wi-Fi to the world, everything was looked at from a completely rural point of view. And end of the day, today, we are back to basics. You know,
so that was in your, indirectly I'm guessing you're saying that was a mistake, having Maithripala Sirisena there as president.
Well, I would say we put a square peg in a round hole. You know, that has been the problem. You basically now have a situation where you see a bird flying, and when you're flying on, you see the whiteness of the bird. Now, that's the type of thing that we have. That's why I say today, politicians must be told, if you're giving a free lunch, who is going to pay for that? Because somebody has got to do that. That's why we are bankrupt. That's why I say the bureaucracy has to pay the price for allowing this to go on. I would basically say they are the ones who should be held responsible for this today's bankruptcy.
And people tend to accept anything that comes free, and when the government comes in and says, okay, we're giving you concessions, then they're happy, and then come an election also, then you see people voting for that. Shouldn't there be more awareness where people are made to understand the actual economic situation, how things actually work, as opposed to coming out and saying, okay, we'll give you something free, now you take it?
Absolutely right. That's what I've been driving, saying that you have got to basically show the economic sense of all this. You know, what this 2019-20 government inherited is what we basically inherited in 2015. But at that particular point, you had 8.2% revenue to GDP, but we pushed it to 15% in 33 months. Now then, how is it that we are back to 8.2? Who is held responsible? So, isn't it the official? Isn't it the people in decision making? Because putting it only on the politician is maybe right to the extent that Parliament, but Parliament doesn't control anything. Today you go tell a minister do what he wants, the secretary will say, I'm sorry, get me the necessary approval. So if that can happen, then how have we led to this? That's why I say first set of regulations that must come is that where is the decision making process? And media also learn to basically ensure that it's the national development approach that is there. I call it a clarion call. Because today, social media has taken over. You know, you don't have any scruples at all. Anybody can put anything and, you know, that goes on. So on that basis, let's all put together, as much as you're saying that all the politicians must put their act together, all the media, all put together. Either we basically we swim together or we sink. So this is the time that we have got to move forward. And I say now, budget came in. There's a 2,400 billion deficit that is there, which is 7.9%, I think. Then you have got the primary surplus that they want by X amount to come to, say, maybe 2% of that. But how do you basically look at it? I basically think that there are some low-hanging fruits that basically can get the answer. Now, if I may take the opportunity, today there are only 330,000 tax files in this country. Now, in a 24 million population, is this something which is relevant? It is absolutely relevant. We are basically living well beyond our means. So on that score, trying to say everybody must have a tax file is good, because it doesn't mean that you're going to pay tax. But like an identity card, you have it, it's a selling tool to you. So on that basis, we have at the moment approach that we've got revenue of at the moment about 1,500 trillion, 1.5 trillion. Now we need to ensure that the costs are reduced. But there are no attempts shown to reduce government costs, which I think is a heinous crime. That is where you've got to do. Now if you digitalize the economy, I think that's what we must do it first. You saw how the QR code came.
Yes.
You know, all the problem went off. And I must say that Minister Kanchana did a fantastic job. He basically had the professional, got it, put it in, and you suddenly had a solution that was there. Now, likewise, digitalized economy, my feeling is you can get about a 500 billion a year. Then you look at the Samudri. It is utter crime. These are organized crime that basically where 50% of them are getting for not that should get. So there are people who should be well in the economic stream, but they are getting this and hiding themselves. This is why all the lethargy comes into the country. You can save 50 billion on that. Now here, almost 2.2 million people are on the Samudri, when effectively about another 500,000 should come in, and about another million should be out of that. So this is where, if you basically digitalize, this basically problem won't exist. Then government service. My belief is you spend 1.1 trillion on the government service, 300-400 million on the pension, 1.7 million government servants with another 200,000, which is, I would say, on the casual basis, is well beyond the acceptance of Sri Lanka. You know, we have every one person has almost every 7 people have one government servant. In other areas, it's 1:50. So what is this particular one? If we can rationalize this way, you can save about 600 million. You can. I guess the armed forces, the police and the state intelligence must be there. Then basically the education, health. The rest of them, today 1/3 are drivers and peons. Now, I am saying this with hands-on experience. Why is it nobody wants to dare and correct that particular one? You can save 600 million on that type of modification. And the other one is, I am a great believer that this taxation is completely wonky, and paying at 100,000 is something which is, I feel, that it is an insult to injury, because you devalue the currency. The same official says, okay, now after devaluing, you basically take the 200,000 reduced to 100,000, and basically at the end of the day, you are enslaving the people that basically can afford to be in the country. May thought otherwise, why should I be in the country? So you can push the 250, and above that you can have whatever rates that you want. Now that process, if you basically have a taxation which is say 12.5% or something, which will attract a lot of companies into this country. That is where the self-factor. That's why I say IMF must be told, you tell, okay, bring me 300 billion. Government, give me 300 billion as revenue. Now, increase revenue to 10, 12, 15%, like what we did. We moved 8.2 to 10, 11% to 14% to 15% in the 33 months. That's how we have got to work. That's why I say, today we have a government that is not performing, and we have a opposition that is thriving, unable to provide any solution, and living on being like prophets of gloom. So likewise, then government institutions must be commercialized. There you can save at least 700 billion. You would see how petroleum lost 784 billion, they say. Sri Lankan airline, you know, you basically have CB. Now that's a place I have experienced where you tell the official what to do, and they give answers, and not the solution. They are part of the problem. Today, they are speechless, because these are same things that are documented that is there. And today, they are unable to give answer. Then debureaucratizing. At least 100 billion can be saved. Now, I'm saying in numbers that can basically earn about a 2 trillion a year. Then all government institutions must find their monies to pay for the government servants. Now, this approach will basically eradicate the lethargy. Today, one place that I know have 15 people just to carry a file from one place to the other. They work only 3 to 4 hours. Now, why should 24 million people pay the price for this 1.7 million to stay? Everybody says the first lot of revenues out of 1.6 trillion go to pay 1.1 trillion to the government servants, 300 million to the pensions, and left with 200. The debt servicing is also 1.3 trillion. Where do you get the money? We borrow to pay our loans. Now, when we tell the people who are doers and who have the meritocracy to take forward, they get hammered. This is where you got to do it. You don't need to increase taxes. Cut this down. Tell the people that you have 1.7 million, what are they doing? Protect our armed services to the relevant requirement, police improve it, then the state intelligence, and then basically get. There is one lot which we have to pamper. There are people who are sick, there are differently able, those give them whatever they want without any question. But rest of it, now Samudri, why should they get something for nothing? Let them come and work in the closest Pradesh Sabha that is there. You will have 50% not coming to collect Samudri if that is the case. Then customs should be modernized. That's a glorious place that you can earn 600-700 billion more. So that's the place that you can. Then my belief is, I think the tourist minister at the moment is doing a service that is trying to encourage more tourists in the country. So Harayana should be told, ensure that a visa free that is there for 2 years. Because once a foreigner, say in USA or in China or in India, basically says that he has to go and get a visa to come, he'll say, why should I go there when I can go to a Singapore or a Maldives or anything without a visa? Come here. And then so once they come here, get that $20 that you're trying to get for all the things that are there. Encourage them to come here. When they come, they'll at least have additional, meal that will get that amount of money. Then high-tech, the agriculture. Here we are importing 100 to 110 billion rupees worth of imports in the country. Chilies, onion, all of them. Do it locally. The universities, to ensure we have roughly 35 universities, each of them to be given 15% to bring foreign students in. Now we go to weird places that are there. Why can't we bring it in? Well, Indians, the Bangladeshis, the Maldivians, I'm only talking SAARC.
Yeah.
They love to come here and stay here. And
but when they see these protests, the students protesting, they wouldn't want to come.
No, exactly, you're giving the answer. And this is where the media should point out and say, why every day, you go to fort, you have something that is stuck because they are protesting. Is that the country you'd love to stay? No. The same lot when they go overseas, they'll work 3 times harder, 10 times harder, and basically not even carry a boat that is there.
When you're talking about digitalization, do we have the infrastructure to digitalize now?
Well, my knowledge, I must profess, is not excellent, but you saw how QR code came in.
Yeah.
We were having 2.5 months of queues. In 1 week, the problem was solved. Not that we don't. Now, we have excellent companies in this country that are basically providing answers, Rolls-Royce to Disney World, to, banks that are there. There was a company that said they were doing to insurance companies overseas. But our Sri Lanka insurance company doesn't buy from this company. Banks, they provide international multinational banks, but they can't give People's Bank and Bank of Ceylon. That's where it is. They are everything. Decision making is not followed. So I'm basically saying not that we don't, we have it. Then, as I said, free education must be maintained. Then you also give option, anybody who learns from it should pay back to the country. If not, ensure that you want to go overseas, by all means, pay for it. Then ragging should be basically banned and criminal activity there. Now, are these happening? Then, as I said, we stopped the duty-free vehicles for doctors, officials, parliamentarians, but the very people who basically laughed at them today don't even have a push bike coming out. Now, we saw it happen, but what we paid the price for bringing it in. Today, it is on. Then carbon trading, blue economy, green economy that you said. Now, here we are producing hydro, solar, all these exactly carbon credit. The foreigners are wanting to buy, we basically squander it. Then mangroves, I know a friend of mine who basically has it. They want to bring it here. They shrub, clean it, they get money. But the governments don't want to do that. That is the sin that is there. Then fully modernize the VAT. Today the VAT leakage is so heavy. When I was there, we introduced a 15%. We were basically getting the revenue, putting the place into order. What a lot of blame we heard. Then you had the 219 government coming and taking away. And then the IMF is saying, if we maintain the same thing, then there won't have been a problem. Now, why didn't they have the audacity to tell that to the government then? They do it after the crime has been committed, and then they make the people pay the price, and the officials basically are silent. Now, this is the problem, what I say. That's why I said the VAT should be completely modernized. Then reduce, as I said, the direct taxation to 15%, and ensure all the other things are incorporated into one tax. Then the government servants basically should be targeted in that manner that is there, and the policies consistent, coherent, decisive, and longevity that should be there. You know, problem is we have every budget, you have a different policy. Yeah. That's why I think Ranil Wickremesinghe, we hats off, he basically opened the system up, system change. 1 year we show the way, 25 years we make the country or not. That's the challenge that we do. And I'm happy that the parties that are there, except for few that don't see beyond their nose, have got together and ensured that they've started the course. I once again say, not that it can't be done, whether it wants to be done is the question. Then the one other thing that is there is the foreign remittances. You know, today, Undel system is, or they call the unofficial system. Yeah. Why? Because official channels, they don't have the confidence factor. But if you say from tomorrow, okay, a person working overseas, go on the basis of foreign remittance to have a dollar certificate. Let the dollar certificate be traded. You will suddenly have all the monies that had gone through Undel coming through the official channel. Why is the government not doing this? Why is the official not allowing? Central bank doesn't think. They don't want to encourage that type of thinking because they basically think that will only create further problem. No, that will be the way how all the monies will be brought into dollar certificate. And also legitimize the sale of gold. You know, you have taxes that are there. That's why every day you see that amount of people robbing gold off the country. If you say here is a 0.25% gold tax, you will have absolute gold heaven. Dubai and Singapore will get for it because India is the biggest consumption. They roughly take 4,500 tons of gold. So they go to Dubai or to Singapore do it. Why can't they come to Sri Lanka? They'll love to do so. That's the way to go forward. And then ensure that you basically have the duty-free concept like you have in Mana, Vaunia Basin. You basically have the traffic can come from India and go. These are the areas that you have got to do. So all of them, without any paucity, I could say, will bring you 2 to 2.5 trillion revenues that are coming in. Now that, on an annual basis, it can be about 1.5 trillion, but for the first 1-2 years, you can have 2.5 trillion. Then why do you want to have any further taxation? Your taxing maximum you'll get maybe additional 30 billion. But you'll kill at least another 500,000-600,000 small and medium enterprises, which never be able to come up again. So let's invest. We are talking of the youth. We are talking of modernization. We are talking of sea change. Let those people who fight walk the talk. And I call the media also, please help us to get to that point. There's no point having dreams if you are basically having the, I would say, the biggest stumbling block being the very first step that you're going to take is the problem that it created. If you have that as the problem, let's open that problem.
And you have so many ideas. Have these ideas being tapped by the government, by the president?
No, well, I mean, when you get a political respite that is there, I mean, I came out, I'm answering media conference to you after a long time. So I also felt that it is a crying shame and it's a time that you've got to open out. I must say, Ranil Wickremesinghe has addressed many of the thinking, because I know his thinking process. And I think it's a time, the officials that are there, you must have a reservoir of talent that is required. We have it, but we are not tapping it. You know, one person can't do it all. You have to have a team. That's how you've got to get this moving forward. And I repeat and re-emphasize the fact, not that it can't be done, whether it wants to be done or not. Now, while basically saying that, all I basically can say is that there is a saying, hard times create heroes. It's during the hard times when the hero within us is revealed. So I guess that's how all of us must become the heroes. Not let it be said that we had the opportunity, why we missed it again. 74 years of independence, economic independence has not been obtained. Let's get it from the 75th year and move forward. I think another one that must be mentioned on the inflation, these are today having a cost push inflation that is taking place. So many are trying to control after the very officials create the cost push. Now they are saying that the inflation that is going on. I mean, this was nicely summed up by about a 23-year-old person, economic student, who came and told me, sir, inflation is like too many boys running after two little girls. That's the type of situation where you basically create it and then go after it. So these are the things that you are going to look at now. Today, you have an 8 billion world population. Of that, 1.48 is in India, 1.41 is in China. So this is 30% of the total world population. So Sri Lanka has one of the best advantages next to brotherly India to take advantage. 2% of their market is enough for us, greater than our GDP of the present country. So this is where we have got to think completely outside the box. Don't be like laggards. Take that risk. Let it be creative. Ensure that we have the creative innovativeness that is there. And if we don't let us be heard to be crying.
Right, on that, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you for taking time to join us on Fire this week.
Thank you very much. And I hope that we can take the first step to ensure that there is economic reconciliation and also to get the people together. Let's be from a divisive basis to a united approach, and that's what we have got to do. Look at the social fabric of our country. You have the Sinhalese, the Tamils, the Muslims, Burghers, the Malays, all of them. So let's have the industriousness of the Tamils, the business acumen of the Muslims, and the large-heartedness of the Sinhalese all put together and make a Sri Lanka great again.
So thank you, and thank you for joining us for On Fire for this week. Till next time, stay safe.
We are certainly on fire. Oh. Let's bring that ice into that fire now.
For sure. Thank you once again.